When we think about games and the impression they've left on us, often you'll think about the beginning and the end. For me, I find myself thinking about certain endings for games more often than others, even years after I finish them. And while thinking about them, I've started to ask myself, why do I remember these ones specifically? Were they particularly shocking or exciting, or did they just manage to wrap up the ending to a game or a series that well? In this video, I've decided to look at some of the ones that have stuck in my head throughout the years and analyse the direction the endings took and perhaps understand why these ones are particularly memorable. The first ending I want to talk about is probably the first ending I ever experienced for a game that was so engaging and that captivated me, while also just confusing the hell out of me. I first played Metal Gear Solid 2 a few years after it had come out, probably when I was about 7 or 8 years old. This was the first Metal Gear I had ever played, and from the get-go, it was a very different story and experience to what I was used to at that point. For most of my time playing games up until that point, I was playing quite simple and easy games, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. But Metal Gear from the get-go had a completely different feel to it. I mean, first off the bat, the controls were in the Japanese format where O is confirm, not X. It had the first-person switch button, and it was all from fixed camera angles, all of which my 8-year-old brain had to adapt to, but still left an impression on me as a new experience. Then slowly as I made my way through the game, its story pulls me in and I'm captivated by the characters, the setting, and the overarching plot, steadily pulling everything together. I don't even know where you could truly classify the ending, but for me, the moment you awaken in Arsenal Gear is where it all sticks in my head. The strange codec calls from the Colonel, at one stage telling me to turn the console off, which freaked me out.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
The fight between you and the Metal Gear Rays, and the near enough movie-length cutscene that follows. The whole explanation of it's all been a simulation inside a simulation and so on, genuinely breaking my brain at that point, and I never understood it. Then, the final fight with Solidus on the roof to the final cutscene with Snake, once again, confusing the hell out of me. It wasn't until many years later I came back and played it again that I feel like I might truly understand their ending, about how Snake is telling us the player to question what we see and read in the media, to make our own decisions about what to believe in and what we choose to leave behind as important lessons for the future.
Life isn't just about passing on your genes. We can leave behind much more than just DNA. Through speech, music, literature, and movies, what we've seen, heard, felt, anger, joy, and sorrow. These are the things I will pass on. That's what I live for.
The experience of my younger self's confusion at this ending, and then rediscovering and understanding that ending later on, is a huge reason why this ending sticks in my head. But not only that, the lessons and values that Snake imparts on the player is also something that I find fascinating and quite a valid moment of discovery. Upon reflection, the themes in Metal Gear 2 regarding the control of information, online echo chambers, useless data, and making informed decisions based on our own freedoms are crazy ahead of their times, considering this was being discussed in 2001 when the internet was still basically in its infancy. So because of this philosophical portrayal of the overarching themes, and because it's one of the earliest endings that I ever experienced, it's no wonder why this is one of the first ones that I can say has stuck with me ever since. Next, let's discuss a title that's a bit more recent. Holy crap, Last of Us came out in 2013. Alright, more recent than 2001. The Last of Us is another game in this list that is by far a near enough masterpiece of storytelling. I'm sure most of you are aware of its premise, where we follow Joel and Ellie on their journey across the zombie-infected wasteland of America to get Ellie to a safe house run by a faction known as the Fireflies. The Last of Us is an emotional rollercoaster of some fantastic moments, followed by utter tragedy. We spend nearly the whole game experiencing this bond forming between Joel, a man who had lost his own teenage daughter before the outbreak, and was initially reluctant to take care of Ellie, who herself has experienced her own trauma, both initially being totally against the idea of working together and journeying to their destination. only to then slowly grow more accepting and quite fond of each other as they journey across the states. On numerous occasions, both of them saved the lives of each other, most notably Ellie nursing Joel back to health following his fall in the university building, then switching this with Joel coming for Ellie after she's been taken by the cannibal group. And as the player, we share in these moments of these two. We watch them joke together, fight together, cry together, and we want them to both survive. There are moments that are so beautifully crafted that I often forget that I was playing a game. I just wanted to sit back and watch them interact with each other and riff off each other. It's then at the ending of the game, where we reach our destination, we discover a horrible truth. Ellie, very early on in the game, shows us that she's immune to the infection, and the reason we have to transport her to this location, as it turns out, is to see if they can manufacture a cure. We are separated from Ellie and are held captive by the Fireflies, who we believe to be at least some form of ally. We discover the only way for them to manufacture a cure is to remove the fungal growth around Ellie's brain, which will kill her in the process. Following this information, the player takes Joel in a very cathartic rampage through the hospital to try and save Ellie, killing all those in our path. We do this until we reach the operating room and take Ellie away. Upon regaining consciousness, she asks us if they made a cure, and in a mostly selfish action, Joel lies to her, saying it wasn't possible. This ending is an odd one to me. It offers the player that moment of pure rampage and catharsis through the hospital, and the ability to save Ellie's life. However, I kind of questioned it all as it was happening. Joel is very much an anti-hero in this game. He is pretty ruthless, as is Ellie. They both kill indiscriminately, and yet when given a chance to potentially save humanity and create a cure for the infection ravaging the world, Joel would rather save Ellie's life and lie to her rather than let her give her own life to potentially save millions. It's a moment where, of course, we're glad both of the characters are alive after all they've been through, but I also find myself questioning whether this moment of selfishness on the main character's behalf is the right thing to do. So once again, it's quite a philosophical ending to think about, and one that is emotionally charged too. And it's because of this big overarching question of, is it right to save one life rather than sacrifice it to potentially save millions, that I find myself thinking about it over and over again years later. Am I supposed to support this ending? Was this the right path to take? I think the fact that The Last of Us was such a great game alongside that, because we formed this bond between these characters and we cared about them, while also questioning their ethics of their actions, particularly at the end, is one of the biggest reasons I'm still thinking about it to this day. Another game I played a lot back when it came out in May of 2010 was Red Dead Redemption. My God, I was excited to play this game when I saw it advertised. I remember rewatching the trailers for it constantly and buying PlayStation magazines that had articles and reviews for it, and it's safe to say that Red Dead is one of my favourite games of all time, from its great gameplay and its open world to its phenomenal story. And to me, the overall experience playing Red Dead again accompanies the ending so well, and it's quite likely one of the reasons this one sticks in my head so well. In Red Dead, you spend your time playing John Marston, a Wild West gunslinger who has to hunt down the remaining members of his old gang in exchange for the freedom of his family. You journey across a vast landscape and into whole other countries to find and kill these members of your gang, raiding old forts, working with the Federales, and eventually the army to take down these criminals. And while this part of the game is the meat of it all, where obviously everything happens, the way they wrap up this story is what really binds it all together so well. After taking out Dutch van der Linde, your old father figure and leader of the gang, you return to your farmstead with your family and you think, that's it. You can continue to rebuild your life and forget everything else that happened. You're safe now, you can finally lead that peaceful life that John's been wanting. But it's not that simple. In the final mission, the government sends its all to take you down and settle the business of this gang once and for all. Even after you did everything they demanded of you, after complying and working with them to clean up their mess, Edgar Ross, the main federal agent pursuing your gang, finally comes to put you down. You fight off waves of agents, marshals, and even the army, but it's no use. You take your family to the barn and let them escape while you stay and face what's coming to you. You take those steps out of the barn and try and take out as many people as you can, but it's futile. Edgar Ross walks away feeling like his job here is done, and at this point I was convinced that it was. But then the game places you in control of your son, Jack. Now I was again convinced that this is how the game left you to free roam after the story was over, but there was more to this story to be put to rest. You can follow a small storyline with Jack in the efforts to track down Ross and avenge his father. You eventually find Ross by a river and challenge him to a duel, and what follows is a great feeling of vengeance. This ending wraps up the story so well, as to me it is of course a story of the evolving times, from the American Wild West to the civilized future, but it is a game about redemption. John thought he was redeeming himself by cooperating with the authorities to take down his old friends, only for him to be put down by the same agents of order that he thought he was aligned with. This is a game that talks about the consequences of your actions. John was never absolved of his sins he had committed in the past simply because he assisted the law in taking down his old gang. John's redemption came not when Dutch dies, but when he sacrifices himself to save his family so he can face his past head on. But what about Jack's ending? You can view this ending in a couple of ways. You could see it as a justified vengeance and a closing of the chapter with his family and the government, or you could also see it as a continuation of the cycle of violence that's plagued his father before him. Jack's ending has always been a little bit of a thought-provoking one for me, as I do feel the relief of vengeance when he kills Ross, but there is a part of me that feels like he's repeating the sins of his father, and the passage of time of what's to come will not be kind to him if he stays on that path. It is a difficult one, but again, another ending that has stuck with me for a long time, and hopefully you can see why. This one is probably a bit of a controversial one. Cyberpunk 2077, while releasing as a complete mess, still cemented itself as one of my favourite games of recent years. And the biggest thing for me was its story and soundtrack. Seriously, the story in Cyberpunk is dark, engaging, well written, and replayable over and over again for me. The story focuses on not just you and Johnny Silverhand battling it out in your mind, but it's also centered around your characters coping with the idea that they are dying. And while the story does also focus on how to cure you, it's the final segment where you decide on how you're going to handle your dire situation. You are on death's doorstep. You are sitting on a rooftop with Johnny, discussing all your options, and the game collects all your choices, your relationships and factions you've worked with to offer you a variation of all the possible options. The first time I played this, I'm pretty sure I chose the second worst option. I chose to work with Arasaka, the very company in the game who put our character in this situation. But I believe that because they had made the tech that was killing me, they were the best choice. And there's a moment after you handle all the gameplay side of things, storming Konpeki Plaza and finishing your end of the bargain, you meet with Johnny Silverhand in your mind, and it's that first stage of disappointment he has for you that starts the downturn. Had I made the right decision? You then wake up in a white room, performing cognitive tests over and over again, in this bleary-eyed haze, and the more you go through, the more I'm thinking this was a mistake. It really puts that into perspective, where I get the confirmation of this being one of the worst endings when the Devil Tarot card appears. It's at that moment where I got the last choice to make, and it's that Arasaka cannot cure me, but they can offer to take my consciousness and upload it into their system, just like Johnny. After all I had experienced in this white room, I had enough, so I decided to face what I had coming and leave. Once you do, you get this heartfelt moment of walking off the space station, and then roll credits, where we get to talk to all the characters we had encountered on our journey. After that first ending, I was hooked. I had to replay it over and over again to get the different endings. And some are better than others. Some fit with your character way better, and all these endings are throwing themselves around in my head, not only because they're so well written and played out, but because they actually offer deep thought into the perspective you can have on life. I talked about this briefly in my Cyberpunk video a few months ago, but Cyberpunk's story isn't just about about a dystopian hellscape of technology that our future almost certainly will turn out to be. It's more personal than that. It's a story about creating your legacy. How do you want to be remembered? How do you accept the idea that you will die someday? In our character's case, quite soon. So often, this game has moments centered around remembering characters, such as Jackie. When you attend his funeral, it plays into this fact that he has a legacy, and he has imprinted himself on those around him. And Johnny, his realization of what he is remembered as opposed to what he wanted to be remembered as. Your final choice as to how you're handling your imminent death is you forging that legacy. And when it comes to the acceptance of death, there is only one ending that really drives this home: the easy way out. While it's called The Easy Way Out, I'd say it's the saddest ending of all, especially if you've encountered and had the moments with some of these characters. The credits are just filled with the people who are sad, bitter and angry about the choice you make. Because of this heavy impact and the interwoven themes throughout Cyberpunk's story, it's no question as to why these endings are still thought about. I still question them and the themes almost every day. Sure, Cyberpunk was a buggy mess on release, but please, I truly think that the story and messages it conveys to the player are so worth it to experience, especially now that it's fixed. The final ending, or endings I should say, I want to talk about are from Telltale's Walking Dead series. To start with, Season 1. In Season 1 you play Lee, a man who has taken a little girl, Clementine, under his wing to protect her and help her find her parents in a zombie wasteland. The game is chopped up into episodes like any Telltale game, and each episode poses a problem that Lee and the rest of the survivors have to work out, eventually getting them to their goal of reaching Savannah on the coast of Georgia. Not only because they think it's a way out to safety, but also because that's where Clementine's parents are. Throughout these episodes, you build a bond not just with Clem, but with every survivor in your group, some better or worse, and each choice you make has a lasting impact upon everyone else. Most importantly, Clem. It becomes your sole purpose not only to protect her, but to teach her how to survive in this new world she'll be growing up in. And the game very easily gets the player to actually care about Lee and Clem. You want them to succeed and survive. In the final moments of the first season, not only does Clem get kidnapped, but Lee also gets bit. This effectively marks Lee for death. He's not got much time. And that's already a hard enough truth to get through, but even through all of this, we still have to find Clem. You go through a whole journey across the city to find her, leading you to a hotel where her parents were staying, where you find her kidnapper. You have a moment, fight, and kill him, then you have to get Clem to safety. At this moment, you're already turning. You're on your last legs. You stumble into a secure building and have your final moments with Clem as you slowly turn. It leads you to the final choice where you have to ask Clem either to shoot you or leave you. I personally have always chosen Clem to shoot Lee. It means Lee doesn't suffer and Clem learns an important lesson to take with her on her survival journey. Once you choose this, you truly have a moment of just despair. You feel like you failed the game. You want to restart and somehow stop Lee from getting bit. This whole scene is gut-wrenching. I'm certain I'm not alone in saying I had tears during this scene. It's the culmination of all your choices and the end of your journey with Lee and Clem. Now, while this scene is hard enough, the next ending in this series I want to discuss is almost just as saddening. While seasons 2 and 3 are great as well, exploring Clem's journey as she grows older and eventually taking a child under her wing to protect AJ, it's the final season's ending that honestly threw me all over the place. This series has always been about Clem. Everyone wants her to live and succeed. And it's again in that final episode of the final season I was nearly broken. Throughout her journey, Clem has survived against all the odds. Even with a child under her protection, she had made it a number of years surviving the best she could, until just like in Lee in Season 1, Clem gets bit. Now, while Lee's death was hard, seeing Clem get bit was even worse. We had effectively been with this character for multiple seasons and guided her through the zombie-infected wasteland she was forced to inhabit. We made sure she was strong enough to do what she needed to survive. Even after all that, she's been bit, and she takes AJ to a barn to guide him, just like Lee had guided her all those years ago on how to survive. And once again, we have to ask AJ to either leave or put us out of our misery. I believe that the latter is always the best choice. Again, I'm damn near broken and in tears at this scene. I'm not afraid to say that. This scene is horrible to watch. After that axe swing, I was pacing around my room. I didn't want to keep going, but I did. I watched AJ continue life with the survivors we had in this season. Time has obviously passed, and we walk back to our camp. And it's as we're walking around the camp that Clem's voice suddenly rings out. I genuinely thought it was a hallucination, but sure enough, there she was. Telltale had pulled a fast one on me. She was there, alive and well. That axe swing removed the bite and saved her life. I don't think I could have been more happy at that moment. There was just a wave of too many emotions passing at that time. And then we get the final ending sequence where AJ ventures back to our room, places down Clem's cap that she's worn every season on the dresser, and a final message appears from the devs. This ending to a series is genuinely one that left me feel empty inside for a long time. I, for one, didn't think that we would ever get a conclusion considering Telltale's situation at the time of development, but that skeleton crew was dedicated to us and gave us that brilliant ending. An ending that made it feel like all our choices in those previous seasons, building Clem to be the survivor she was, and watching her journey as she grew older, was all worth it. This was an ending that exemplifies how good a series should be written and ended. It is an example of really good writing, fantastic gameplay, and a cast of characters that all had their quirks. It's because of that good writing that we actually forged a bond between Lee and Clem and the other characters around them. We cared about what happened to them, how we taught them how to survive. I genuinely don't think I'll quite experience an ending like that for a very long time. And that collection of emotions that I felt throughout all of them is why this one's quite honestly one of the most impactful for me. So after all these endings, what makes an ending so memorable? To me, the ending of a game makes its impact through a number of things. First of all, it has to carefully and perfectly wrap up the storyline they're trying to tell. That's obvious. But there are so many games out there that are part of amazing franchises or are standalone games that build up to a great ending and then fumble it at the very last step. It also needs to respect the player's choices. So often a game will let you do whatever you want throughout the story, and then the final act comes and railroads you down a certain path. I want to feel like the choices I made mattered. I want to know that what I decided should happen in the game will be reflected at the end. It makes me feel like my time with this game was worth it and was actually valued. But most importantly for me, they need to evoke those strong emotions, those thought-provoking questions, and at times the genuine moral issues that we face day to day. Throughout the games we play, the player should form strong connections with the characters they're controlling or interacting with. A memorable ending often involves significant character development where we have witnessed growth, redemption, sacrifice, or resolution in the characters we have come to care about. Games have this unique ability to immerse us in rich, interactive worlds, allowing us to empathize with characters and situations in ways that other media can't really replicate. Games are not just interactive entertainment, they are a telling of a team or individual's beliefs and convey a message or observation of the world to the player. They are works of art that someone wants you to experience along with them, as they have crafted it. All these games that I have mentioned have an underlying message, a meaning that they want to express through their game. From Metal Gear's message about the control of information, about leaving something for the next generation, The Last of Us' anti-hero complex situation of saving an individual regardless of the consequences, Red Dead's message about redemption, the sins of the father and the passage of time, Cyberpunk asking us what our legacy should be, how do we come to terms with our end, and The Walking Dead handing the player the keys and saying, what will you do to survive? All of the games that I have mentioned throughout this video have left their lasting impression on me and my beliefs, not just as entertainment products, but as something that has genuinely led me down the philosophical path of questioning these hidden meanings and messages that they try to convey. It is through careful and planned writing that these games had that impact. Not every game has to have phenomenal gameplay alongside its well-crafted story to have this sort of impression on the player. Cyberpunk is a testament to that. It was a broken mess on release, but the story kept me locked in. Its message kept me interested. Another game that I haven't mentioned, but again is a fantastic example of this, is Suzerain, a heavily story-driven game where you lead a fictional country through times of trouble. It's almost entirely text-based, but the story the devs have written is simply fantastic. It's genuinely one of the best indie games I've played to date. To me, a well-crafted and engaging story will always overcome poor or lacking gameplay. If the devs can keep me hooked like they have done with these games, that is something worth my time. That's why these endings have left an impact on me, and countless other players across the world. And that's why great writing will always overcome gameplay and mechanics. But what about you? What are some of your most memorable endings to games? How do you think they left an impression on you? Let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you have to say. As always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more, be sure to click the subscribe button and leave a like, as it really helps me out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.